For centuries, people used amulets and whispered warnings just to survive the night.
Boo!
In the summer of 2014, a rural household in northern Jordan reported a series of structural anomalies that defied physical explanation. Heavy iron doors unlatched themselves from the inside. Temperatures in sealed rooms dropped 20 degrees in seconds, and security cameras captured moving silhouettes that cast no shadows. When local authorities examined the footage, they found no evidence of a break-in, no mechanical failure, and no human trespasser. But the most unsettling detail was not what the cameras captured on video. It was what the investigators found recorded on the audio track, a rhythmic, dragging footstep pacing the hallway, followed by a series of precise clicking impacts that sounded less like human shoes and more like the heavy, cloven strike of a quadruped walking upright. Before we uncover what truly walks the unseen spaces of our world, drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you are watching from and what time it is right now. Let's see how far this investigation reaches. For centuries, modern skepticism has dismissed accounts of invisible, intelligent entities as ancient superstitions, cultural metaphors for mental illness, or elaborate folklore designed to explain the unexplainable. Yet, across the Middle East, North Africa, and the broader Islamic world, millions of people maintain a deeply ingrained conviction regarding an autonomous, sentient species that shares our physical environment while remaining entirely concealed from ordinary human perception. These are not benevolent guardian spirits or cartoonish figures trapped inside magical lamps. According to theological documentation and centuries of anthropological records, they are known as the jinn, beings possessing absolute free will, high intellect, and physical forms constructed from what ancient texts describe as scorching, smokeless fire. Therefore, the very name of the entity defines its primary characteristic, an existence defined by concealment. They are a parallel civilization living within our walls, our landscapes, and our cities, operating on a frequency of matter that bypasses normal human sensory perception. Anthropologists studying rural communities across the Levant and the Arabian Peninsula have documented thousands of consistent witness accounts spanning generations. These are not sensationalized internet rumors, but deeply garbled testimonies from local elders, medical professionals, and local researchers who have attempted to document encounters with entities that refuse to remain hidden. Witnesses consistently describe an overwhelming sensory distortion preceding an encounter, an abrupt spike in ambient heat, an intense odor resembling ozone or burning copper, and a sudden oppressive feeling of being watched by an unseen intelligence. The investigation deepens when examining the historical timeline of human interaction with these entities. Long before the formal codification of theology in the 7th century, pre-Islamic nomadic tribes treated the wilderness as a territory governed by volatile, unseen masters. Poets, desert travelers, and fortune-tellers claimed to receive inspiration or terrifying visions from unseen entities inhabiting remote canyons and desolate ruins. Among the most famous historical accounts is that of the ancient pre-Islamic poet Al-Asha, who documented harrowing encounters with desert entities that could alter their shape, mimic human voices, and lure travelers off established trade routes into fatal isolation. In the contemporary digital age, the nature of these reports has evolved, matching the rapid spread of viral urban legends and modern paranoia. Yet, despite the shift from desert campfire tales to smartphones capturing grainy footage in empty alleyways, the core characteristics reported by witnesses remain remarkably identical to those recorded over 1,000 years ago. Modern witnesses continue to describe the terrifying realization that not every form moving in the shadows belongs to a human being. The line separating our world from theirs is dangerously thin, and investigators have realized that the primary danger does not lie in discovering they exist, but in failing to recognize them when they choose to walk among us in an imperfect disguise. The investigation into the nature of the jinn moves beyond theological texts and rural folklore into the unsettling territory of physical evidence and morphological anomaly. While traditional accounts describe these beings as beings of pure thermal energy, capable of manipulating their atomic density, investigators focusing on modern eyewitness testimonies have identified a terrifying recurring motif: the imperfect disguise. According to thousands of independent reports collected by folklorists and cultural researchers across the Middle East, when a jinn assumes a human form to interact with or deceive mortals, it cannot achieve a flawless replication. There is always a critical anatomical failure, a subtle betrayal of form that breaks the illusion. Witnesses across different centuries and disparate cultures repeatedly point to the same two anatomical markers of exposure: unblinking, horizontally or vertically slit eyes that do not match human optical biology, and, most disturbingly, the feet. Historical manuscripts and modern witness statements alike warn that while an entity may wear the face, voice, and clothing of a trusted neighbor, relative, or stranger, it frequently fails to replicate human footwear or foot anatomy. Accounts consistently describe feet that do not touch the ground properly, feet reversed backward, or, most frequently, rigid hoof-like appendages hidden beneath long garments. This persistent tropological detail, the cloven hoof disguised as a human foot, serves as the ultimate psychological trigger in these encounters, transforming an ordinary social interaction into a profound existential terror. Researchers examining the psychological impact on witnesses note a distinct pattern of trauma following these encounters. Individuals who report close contact with disguised entities frequently suffer from prolonged periods of disorientation, severe sleep disturbances, and an obsessive, unshakable conviction that familiar people in their lives have been replaced or shadowed by an intelligence that is fundamentally non-human. Medical professionals working in regional clinics have documented cases where patients exhibit extreme physiological stress responses, including localized skin burns, unexplained fevers, and auditory hallucinations matching the rhythmic clicking sounds recorded in haunted households, all triggered by what the patients insist was a face-to-face encounter with an entity wearing an impossible disguise. Skeptics and sociological researchers offer alternative hypotheses to explain the persistence of these narratives. They argue that the jinn framework serves as a powerful cultural coping mechanism for explaining mental illness, sleep paralysis, neurological disorders, and unexplained environmental phenomena in regions with deeply rooted spiritual traditions. The auditory hallucinations of clicking footsteps or thermal shifts are easily explained by house settling, plumbing anomalies, or psychological projection during times of extreme stress. Furthermore, the reliance on pre-Islamic folklore suggests that these beliefs are reinforced through generational storytelling rather than objective, verifiable physical reality. Yet investigators who have spent decades cataloging these occurrences argue that dismissing the phenomenon entirely as psychological illusion ignores the physical anomalies that frequently accompany the reports. How does science account for locked room thermal drops, electronic interference on recording equipment, and structural disturbances that leave physical marks on buildings? More importantly, how do researchers reconcile the striking consistency of witness descriptions across isolated communities that have no digital communication or shared media exposure? The details of non-human foot anatomy, thermal distortion, and the distinct scent of ozone appear with identical precision in historical archives from the 10th century and in digital audio-visual logs recorded yesterday. The philosophical implications of the jinn narrative challenge humanity's anthropocentric view of dominance over the planet. If an intelligent, technological, or energetically advanced parallel society occupies the same physical coordinates as humanity, unseen and unfettered by the laws of conventional biology, it redefines the boundaries of reality. Humans walk through crowded streets, forest paths, and empty corridors, believing they are the sole masters of their environment, entirely unaware of what shares the space just beyond the visible spectrum. The ancient warning embedded in theological texts is not merely a moral cautionary tale, but a practical survival guide for a world shared with entities that possess the power to observe, manipulate, and deceive. As the investigation concludes, the boundary between folklore and documented reality remains suspended in an uneasy equilibrium. The modern world relies heavily on technology, empirical science, and rational categorization to explain away the unknown. Yet every year, thousands of people experience anomalies that refuse to fit into neat scientific boxes. Moments where the temperature drops, the air smells of burning copper, and a familiar face turns around to reveal an impossible gaze and feet that do not belong to a human being. The jinn remain hidden in plain sight, existing in the spaces between seconds, waiting behind the veil of ordinary perception. And as the recorded evidence suggests, the most terrifying realization is not that they are watching us from the shadows, but that they have already learned to walk among us, hiding in an imperfect disguise.